quite a spectacle in the Oval Office today as South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa visited. We knew it was going to be interesting. The broad media-driven global consensus that we're all expected to accept is that white people cannot be asylum seekers because whites are colonizers, right? Bad guys. If they're being hunted as minorities in their own country, which they are right now, it's not oppression, it's probably deserved. And today, Trump loudly challenged that narrative in the Oval Office and in the White House by amplifying stories most of the world never sees and taking a blowtorch to the narrative that whites cannot be oppressed. Today's South Africa is a disaster. You see the stories a lot. The country is collapsing in real time, a nation that is 93% black, and politicians there push anti-white hate as a vessel to get power. And thousands of white farmers, also known as Afrikaners or Boers, have been attacked and murdered as a result. It's very ugly, the situation there. The political rhetoric is very, very ugly. Today, Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, pretended that this is not happening.
What will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for the president. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. It'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories.
He pressed the issue. Had a different president in there, they would have just moved right along. Let's get you your money and let's get you out of here. Not with Trump. Trump followed up by showing a video. They actually produced a video of African politicians screaming to kill the white man and take his land, videos that you have seen on this show a few times. Most of the world hasn't seen, though. Today, Trump showed these videos to the entire world and a South African leader who pretends that they don't exist.
Must never be scared to kill the poor, the farmer.
We are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. Kill
the poor, the farmer.
We have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now.
We'll expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America.
These are burial sites right here. Burial sites, over 1,000 of white farmers.
Toward the end, you see the video that we're going to show you again here. These are the crosses lined up on a highway in the northern part of South Africa. More than 1,000 white crosses for each white farmer that has been murdered as a result of this kind of rhetoric that we just showed you. Ramaphosa played dumb. When he was shown this, just a few seconds later, he pretended he had no idea that what's on your screen right now existed inside of his own country.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa, that's where.
We need to find out.
Need to find out where it is. Well, for reference, in case he's watching, he needs a map. Those crosses are straight north of his official residence in Pretoria, about 2 hours straight north on a lonely highway right there. It's not far from where he lives at all in a country that big. So one moment that we have to show you happened right after Trump played that 5-minute video of proof of just how much anti-white racism and insane rhetoric exists inside of South Africa. You had NBC's Peter Alexander realizing that his own network was never going to cover this crazy story that was coming out of the White House, this very real story and this incredible moment between our president and South Africa's president. Peter Alexander knows NBC's not going to cover this. Of course, they never cover anything like this. So he immediately changes the subject. The moment that this 5-minute video, which was really powerful and really terrifying actually, ends, this is what Peter Alexander does, and then Trump loses it.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? You know, what are you talking about?
Respond.
You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing.
The only thing they could talk about is this stupid jet. Real News couldn't care less. They just watched 5 minutes of South African politicians calling to murder white people in the country. They could not wait to change the subject. That's your media. Not surprising, Alexander's first question before that, earlier, alleged that Trump was racist for wanting to protect white farmers, but not the entire nations of Venezuela, Afghanistan, or Haiti, who have had protected status removed. In reality, for the last 4 years, this country has accepted everyone that takes a claim. We learned quickly that is not sustainable. Look at this last election and the mandate that came from it. The United States cannot adopt entire failed nations like Afghanistan, Haiti, etc., Venezuela. These are failed nations. If you accept refugees from those countries, you have to accept everyone that lives there, 15, 20 million people from each at least. That can't happen. Reporters should be smart enough to understand that, but they keep asking the same question because they hate the idea of this kind of asylum, of white South Africans coming here. There's, by the way, 59 of them came 2 weeks ago. Taking in entire countries is not what asylum is. Asylum is for small, marginalized groups living in a country, being hunted in the country, and not being protected by their government. It's not for a failed state. In fact, in the definition, it says a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. That doesn't mean everybody in a terrible country that doesn't live well gets to come to another country. That's not what asylum is. It doesn't work. Failed nations have to fix themselves. White South Africans are the definition of refugees. And as they are killed, their president calls anyone who flees the country as they are hunted, he calls them cowards. Take a listen.
None of us ever having to want to run away to another country for fictional reasons that we are being persecuted. We are united in diversity, and none of us should ever feel that they have lost courage, that they've now become cowards and want to run.
That's the real Cyril Ramaphosa when he's not trying to get a little pile of money from the United States, which he's used to getting, his country's used to getting. Ramaphosa today was playing very nice, also playing make-believe.
You do have laws that were passed that gives you the right to confiscate land for no payment. You can take away land for no payment.
I want to clarify that because we have a constitution. Our constitution guarantees and protects the sanctity of tenure of land ownership. And that constitution protects all South Africans.
You're taking people's land away
we have not.
from them. And those people, in many cases, are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers.
So here's a law that was just passed and signed by Ramaphosa, and he obviously knows about this law, acted like he didn't. It allows land seizures by the state without compensation, allows for expropriation without compensation only in circumstances where it is just and equitable and in the public interest to do so. Well, Ramaphosa is a Marxist. Equitable in the public interest. Well, whites are 7% of South Africa's population, yet they own 72% of the farms. So what would Ramaphosa's equity books tell us to do in that situation? You have a very small population of the people who are farming the bulk of the land, by the way, also feeding the bulk of the people in the country. Let's not forget about that. But before the government even begins doing what they've laid out in that law, what we're seeing right now is South Africans doing it themselves, as Ramaphosa and his cronies look the other way, authorizing this, essentially. These cases never get solved. And the South African president got played today by two golfers. that he brought from his home country of South Africa. He brought PGA Tour stars Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, seen on the far left there. The South African president invited them to this to try and charm Trump, who of course is an avid golfer, as he worked toward a trade deal and a better relationship to enrich his failing nation. But to Ramaphosa's surprise, the golfers did not defend his position, and they did not help him at all today. They sided with the president. In fact, Retief Goosen told a very personal story of his own family's farm in South Africa.
I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane, and there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer, and yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it, but it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer, and at the end of the day, you know, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers.
That's not what Ramaphosa was expecting to hear from his invited guests to the White House. It was proof of just how widespread these atrocities are. There's a very wealthy millionaire golfer whose family has friends that have been murdered at their farms. Not what he wanted to hear. Thousands of white farmers have seen this happen, and the bulk of the crimes are never solved because there's no desire to punish the killers. That is essentially tacit authorization to kill white people by the government of South Africa. If you do it, we're not going to look that hard at the crime. They can solve crimes if they want to. They don't want to solve these crimes. The irony is Trump is trying to help Ramaphosa. He's trying to help South Africa's post-apartheid government from self-destructing, which is exactly what's happening right now. If the white farmers leave, South Africa collapses, the people starve. A lesson learned 25 years ago in Rhodesia, which is now called Zimbabwe. The government stole the white land. They redistributed it based on race. Country starves. Ramaphosa and others who've played this racist grift to get into power need to have a moment of self-reflection and ask themselves if it's worth the death of their nation to rile up all of this racially charged support to try and stay in power. You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.